Hello everyone, it's Rory Paddock here from pictureandthepaddock.co.uk. Obviously you may know me from doing our daily tips videos that you see on Facebook and Twitter and so on. However, I thought I'd change things up a bit. Obviously we are all in the racing community in some form, whether that's as a racing fan, whether that's someone who works in the sport, whether that's someone who works with horses directly and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, although it pains me to say it, there has been various news, not always the best news, that circles racing, and it would be foolish and doing you guys as our viewers or our audience a disservice if you didn't give it a mention. I'm not going to sit here and profess to be so well embedded in the sport that I am going to know everything, every I that's dotted, every T that's crossed. However, it's just my opinion, and you can by all means debate it. You can tell me where I'm going wrong. You can give your own opinion, which is what I really want. Because I think, just as someone who has sort of got a toe in the racing world, should we say, as a bit of an outsider, I feel that racing as a whole it's hard to get into in any way, shape or form. Certainly if you don't have the funds to be able to purchase a horse at least, or have people in the right sort of connections or the right surname to get through that sort of massive barrier. So you've got to utilise things such as social media to be able to have these sort of discussions. And unfortunately, after yesterday's, sadly, 2 fatalities at Southwell, we are waking up to headlines of this sort of nature. Not that one. Where Southwell Jump Racing suspended after horse deaths. It has been 8 horses that have passed away since the end of lockdown and the return to action at Southwell over their jumps course specifically. And it's something that needs to be addressed, and rightly so. I think the reason that I'm bringing this up, and the reason that I have perhaps a little bit of a grievance with it, aside from the fact that this obviously shouldn't be happening in our sport and we should be taking every single measure possible to ensure the safety of not just rider and human participants within the sport, but obviously not more importantly, but just as importantly, horses themselves. They are the backbone, the lifeblood, the reason that we love this sport, are the horses that are treated so well and should be continue to do so. The reason I've got a bit of a grievance with it is obviously everyone has an opinion, and the joys of social media, similar to arseholes, as they say. Everyone has one, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right one. And there's certain people that I would take, whose opinion I would take far more highly over than someone else's. Dave, who sits on a sofa and has never been to a racing yard, compared to someone who works day in, day out in the sport. They're obviously weighted accordingly. Now, I may come across in this video as a BHA sympathiser, and that pains me personally to say it, because there are things that need to change at the BHA. Vast, drastic changes. I think there needs to be vast and drastic changes within the sport directly. However, I'm not, or just on a personal level, so comfortable with the amount of flack that the BHA are getting because of this at Southwell. Now, just to kind of do a quick recap in terms of the sort of series of events, is owners, trainers, people within racing were demanding more fixtures to try and make up for the fact that obviously a lot of fixtures were lost because of COVID-19. And Southwell stepped up. They did what was asked. They went above and beyond to produce an extra card, an extra meeting, which was yesterday, to help facilitate the need and the demands and the requests of owners and trainers. Now, this was an occurrence that happened prior to the subsequent investigation. So this race meeting that happened yesterday was already penciled in, was already planned before the investigation that obviously subsequently took place in regards to horses' deaths at Southwell. So it's not as if this investigation had happened and then they decided to add an extra meeting anyway. So let's just get that clear. Now, a lot of people's grievances are saying that the BHA were silly to have yesterday's meeting. It was irresponsible to hold yesterday's meeting. And considering they had an ongoing investigation, it was reckless to have a meeting. Now, despite the fact that I've said I'm going to sort of side with them a little bit, I actually agree with all of those points. I think as soon as that investigation starts, nothing happens at that race course certainly in terms of jumps racing, until there's a definitive answer. They know what's going on, and everything is sort of, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and we know first and foremost that racing at Southwell over jumps is safe. It stops, and I think that would have been the right action to take, but it wasn't, neither by the BHA or the course itself. Now, I also have to say that the course itself, I don't know in terms of finances what they get out of holding a meeting, especially a meeting where there is there's no crowd, there's no public, so they're not getting gates, there's not an abundance of bookmakers on course, so they're not getting fees from bookmakers' pitches. So what the bookmakers actually get, what the racecourse actually gets out of it, TV rights I know will pay a little bit, the likes of Arc Racing and stuff like that. But how beneficial to Southwell itself it is to have these meetings, finance-wise, I can't see it being an astronomical amount of money they're bringing in, considering everything that's going on. However, you've also got to understand that for all that I disagree with the BHA in terms of allowing this meeting to go ahead, there has to be some accountability for owners and trainers who send their horses to a meeting that they know is currently under investigation in regards to horses' welfare. Now, I've commented on my own personal Twitter account, and someone said that surely it's the BHA's fault for allowing the racing to go ahead. But my argument and my counter-argument to an extent was, well, you have a duty of care to your horses as a trainer and as an owner. You still have to go and pay the fee to get them into the race, the entry fee. You have to pay for the transport to get them down there. You have to plan what race you enter them in and go through that due process. There's 4 or 5 different steps from deciding we're going to send a horse to getting a horse there, lined up and about to set off. You have to book a jockey. You have to get transport. You have to ensure that all the sort of things are in place to get that horse there. You know, go through the process of the entry and so on and so forth. Now, the way I've read a lot of people's comments is that it's the BHA's fault and that owners and trainers, well, if they've put the meeting on, they presume it's safe. And again, there's a part to that I agree with. The BHA does have a duty of care across the board to govern the sport and ensure the safety of everyone involved. But, and I know this is an extreme thing to say, and it's probably something that many a parent has said to their child, the classic, if someone said, would you jump off a bridge, would you do it? Now, if you, for example, said that said bridge, people used to jump off it, and you jump into the water, it's absolutely fantastic, not been much of an issue. However, over the last month, 6 people have died jumping off this. I would like to think that you would have enough common sense to go, well, if it's under investigation for its safety, and there's been 6 fatalities, I'll probably give that bridge a miss. I've got enough intelligence, I've got enough fortitude, I've got enough common sense and understanding to think that, you know what? It's probably best left alone. And if I then went and I died, yes, the people who operated the bridge would have to have a serious account for it. But I would have to take some of that blame. I would have to take my own accountability for going to the bridge and deciding to jump. At the end of the day, 8 horses have passed away, and that shouldn't be lost on this. But personally, I don't like how the BHA is being used as a scapegoat for people's decisions to send horses there. And ultimately send horses that they are obviously grieving for to a situation that they already knew wasn't safe. It's not as if all the investigation happened after the meeting. All of this investigation was already underway, was already public knowledge prior to yesterday's racing. Now, I think personally the BHA needs a massive overhaul anyway. But I just don't like seeing how people within the sport will quite happily use the BHA as a scapegoat. Because at the end of the day, Southwell Racecourse and the BHA did what they could to actually accommodate owners and trainers by adding this meeting for their benefit to ensure that there was more summer jumps racing. So in essence, the BHA can't do right for doing wrong. They went above and beyond to provide an extra meeting, which is what owners and trainers were demanding. They got that. Unfortunate circumstances have happened subsequent to then, and then it's the BHA's fault for continuing with that meeting. The BHA does need to have a long, hard look at itself, first and foremost. But to say that they are the only guilty party, I think that's a bit disingenuous. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Have I got it right? Have I got it wrong? Is there some massive issue that I'm missing, a massive factor? And please let me know. I am not too proud to say, if there is some sort of massive, someone to come out with something in the press or in the media that I've missed, or there's a glaringly obvious issue that has been unmentioned by myself. Please let me know. I'm here to learn. I'm here to get more knowledgeable, and it'd be hypocritical and it'd be very remiss of me to sit here and profess that I know it all, because I certainly don't. But just for what it's worth, because picksfromthepaddock.co.uk has a bit of a social media platform, it's worth mentioning, it's worth discussing, and I think it's only through discussion, through talking, through having these somewhat awkward conversations that things in this sport will change. And as long as they change for the better, I welcome it with open arms.